Now, this week, a new Irish film opens in the cinemas, and it has already received critical acclaim following its showing at the Cannes Film Festival.
Written, produced and starring Anthony Fox, it tells the story of a young man who returns to his home in Cavan after 5 years at sea. But it is not the home he left. Now, before we talk to Anthony and also co-star Ronan Wilmott, let's take a look at a clip.
We won't be long. A robbery was committed just a few hours ago, just north of the border. Description matches your husband.
I know who you are. I'll report this.
I hope it was worth it.
I made a difference to people who didn't have the rights of a dog.
What difference? What people? You can convince yourself of anything you want. There's nothing more important than...
And family! You've told me.
Well, I'm telling you again.
Well, the father and son in the movie, Anthony and Ronan, thank you both for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Anthony, what an involvement. Writer, producer, starring in movies. So what on earth was the inspiration behind it?
The inspiration was growing up as a kid in Cavan. I met a lot of people in my childhood. Some of them would have been actually... One of them was an ex-British soldier, an Irish guy, who was and came back to... He was from Cavan, and then he went over and worked on the other side. And he brought with him all the experience from the British Army, and I was fascinated by this as a kid. And I knew a lot of other people that would have been involved at kind of different levels, so I thought, my God, that'll make an interesting story, because no one knows these people like I would have had at that time, and the insight I would have had with them over years. I thought, let's create a story around that, build a love story around this kind of violent eruption, and that's what we did.
Would it be fair to say it's a Troubles movie? Because we've had quite a few good ones and we've had quite a few poor ones. Would it be fair to describe it as a Troubles movie, Ronan?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm from Dublin myself. I'm not from Cavan, even though I play Anthony's father. And the Troubles didn't affect us as much as it did up here, obviously. It did from time to time in Dublin. But it's essentially, it's a family story. It's about, father and son and him growing up and just not being able to get away from it. It was every day from early morning you were aware of what was going on around you. So, yeah, it's a story about what went on at that time, but that one couldn't get away from it. So it is, of course, about the troubles that did go on. Yeah. Because
with the Troubles comes violence, comes language, and that has to be portrayed in the film as well, doesn't it?
Well, to get a kind of truthful representation, we had to go for that. It was at the second screening in Cannes that I realised was really working, and we got a standing ovation at that. And also, just before we went, we met up with Jim Sheridan, who Ronan worked with before. And I've been a massive fan of his films in America, Get Rich, Die Trying, all those movies. And he said, I want to see it, and he sat down and looked at it, and then he came back to us and he said, I love this film. He says, it's very strong and one family. And we had 4 minutes in it. And he said there were kind of political messages we thought we had to put in there to explain to audiences where it's set. You know what I mean?
Yes, because we know the stories, but not every audience.
Exactly.
You're assuming everybody knows the stories.
But Cannes recognition can make or break you, can't it?
Well, it can if you pick up a distributor, and that's what we got. And from going from $5,000, when we set off to make this movie, Patrick Clark is really the producer. I kick-started it, but he had the kind of vision of how the hell $5,000, what's that going to get you, an office space? Actually, Mick Wallace gave us an office space.
You see, it ended up then with a slightly bigger budget, but still under $1 million,
which
is unbelievable.
I was well under $1 million. And in fact, we shot it for about 190,000, and then post-production, and then after Cannes, with Jim Sheridan's advice, we changed a couple of scenes, put more stuff actually of myself and my father, Ronan, who plays my dad in it, and concentrate on the characters. And we got a 95% approval rating at a test screening from the public, from a radio.
Good, Ronan, this must be a man to watch for the future, is it?
Yeah, well, we run a small little theatre, beautiful little theatre in Temple Bar in Dublin called the New Theatre. And Anthony asked me to come on board. I was working in there, put on a show there, and he asked me to come on board to run it with him. And so we've been running that now for the best part of 10 years. So I know him, and he is practically like another son of mine at this stage, you know. I have 3 grown-up kids myself, but he is like my other son. Yeah.
So it's a lovely story. The pair of you can be continuing to work together in the new theatre in Dublin, and we wish you every success for the future with Anton. And
thank you very much.
From
Thanks for your support.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.